Today we are going to talk about a drama thriller film called Landmine Goes Click from 2015. A young couple goes on a hike in the mountains of Georgia, but things go awry when one of them steps on a landmine and gets trapped. A psychopath with a gun walks by and decides to take advantage of the situation. 3 American tourists arrive in the mountains of Georgia, where it turns out that Alicia and Chris used to be close. But the girl realized it was a mistake. She asked Chris not to tell her boyfriend, Daniel, about it. Later, the friends climb the mountain and enjoy its beauty. Afterwards, Chris fulfills Daniel's request, but his friend notices that something is wrong. The next morning, Chris notices a stranger rummaging through Alicia's backpack. It turns out that it is a friend of Daniel named Devi. Devi offers to take a photo together, but suddenly Chris steps on a landmine. His friends try to calm him down, but Devi goes to get help, warning that the journey will take at least 4 hours. Meanwhile, Daniel turns on his phone and informs Alicia that they have been rescued, but warns that the rescue service does not help girls of easy virtue. It turns out that Chris told Daniel the truth about his relationship with Alice. The girl asks him to call the rescuers and then sort things out, but Daniel wants to sort things out here and now. Alicia was ready to admit to cheating before, but after Daniel proposed to her, she didn't want to ruin their future family. However, Daniel says that there is no connection and hints that this is his plan of revving. All this was planned by Devi at Daniel's request, because the love of his life betrayed him with his best friend. Chris doubts that Daniel is capable of doing this and thinks he's bluffing. His friend agrees with him and suddenly pulls the check out of the mine. Alicia sincerely apologizes, but the guy is not going to forgive them. The boyfriend wants to stay and watch the show, but the explosion promises to be strong. The girl panics, and Chris asks her to leave because he doesn't want her to get hurt. Alicia finds a check and tries to insert it into the mine, but she is not sure of the success of her actions and decides that it is not worth the risk. All that remains is to dig. Suddenly, Chris hears sounds, and a dog runs out near the rock. Alicia tries to chase it away from Chris, but a man with a gun follows. He thinks the couple is digging up someone's grave. However, Alicia explains that they accidentally hit a mine. The girl notices the man's strange behavior, but still asks him to help dig the hole. Ilya kindly agrees, but instead, he suddenly throws a stone at Chris. The man says he has been coming here for years and has never heard of mines. He demands an honest story, and then Alicia has to tell about her betrayal and revenge from her lover. Ilya is happy and thinks she is an easily accessible girl. Alicia asks him to leave, but the man gets angry because he wants to help. Ilya demands a reward for his attention, and the girl allows him to take their things. The man starts checking their backpacks and finds Alicia's underwear. This is not enough for him, so he wants the underwear she is wearing. Chris offers him money, a credit card, and tells him the PIN code, but the psychopath doesn't like American dollars. He is ready to help, but only for Alicia's underwear. Enraged, Chris is ready to get off the mine, and then Alicia fulfills the demands so that he will eventually help dig the hole. At this point, he is contacted by radio and asked to return. But Ilya shows that he is an honest man and stays to help. The young men ask for his radio, but Ilya is angry and decides that he cannot help. When he is about to leave, the girl calms him down and explains that he can call the rescuers on the radio. In response, Ilya demanded a reward, asking the girl to behave like a dog. Alicia agreed to fulfill his demands in order to save her friend, but the person on the other end of the radio did not understand English. The man offered to help if she would take off her clothes for every phrase she translated. Alicia refused and asked him to leave. A few minutes later, the man returned and said that his friend was worried and that he had heart problems. The girl should say that she was fine, and Ilya would kindly translate the text, but Alicia would have to take off her clothes. The girl had to agree to save her life. When Ilya left, Alicia cried from humiliation. But a minute later, he returned, saying that his friend was back in touch. When Alicia refuses to play, Ilya makes it clear that he will decide when the game is over. The girl tries to escape, but the psychopath catches her. Chris hears the screams and tries to get the gun he left behind. When Ilya brings Alicia, the guy is ready to shoot, but realizes that the weapon is loaded with pellets, and it can kill both of them. Ilya makes it clear that he is in control of the situation, and asks Chris to call Alicia easy. The guy is forced to do so. Ilya assures him that he knows how to deal with such girls, and he takes her behind a rock by force. Chris watches in horror, but can do nothing. When it's finally over, Chris screams for Alicia to come to him and tries to shoot Ilya. The recoil of the weapon throws him back, but there is no explosion. Stunned, he sees Ilya leaning over him, who explains that the mine was a training device. Chris, left alone with the mortally wounded Alicia, tries to call for help, but to no avail. Sometime later, in Georgia, in the courtyard of a beautiful house, a happy mother and daughter are arguing about their upcoming trip to Moscow. Later, Chris appears on the doorstep. The nice guy apologizes for asking for help because he is lost and needs a map. The hostess decides to help the stranger and invites him to her house, where they get to know each other. The woman's name is Tanya, and her daughter is Lika. Chris gets a map and asks for the location of the nearest cafe, but since there is nothing nearby, Tanya invites him to the table. While Chris is praising his hostess's food, Ilya enters the house. Seeing Chris in front of him, the man falls into a stupor. The guy just smiled and greeted Ilya as an old friend. The man tries to hide his emotions but asks Chris to leave the house immediately. Tanya is embarrassed by her husband's behavior, but Chris replies that everything is fine and asks her to finish her delicious meal. Finally, when Chris has left, Ilya catches up with him in the yard and asks him not to hurt his family. The man offers to sort everything out in an hour on the nearest mountain. The boy pretends that nothing has happened, but agrees to meet. As soon as the friendly Chris left, Ilya immediately ordered the dog to guard the house. During the meal, Tanya is worried that Ilya might be drinking alcohol again, but he assures her that he is not. Later, the man fusses around the house. Suddenly, a dog barking is heard from the yard. While Ilya is outside looking for the dog, the family hears a knock at the door. Chris appears on the doorstep, holding an injured dog in his hands. Chris claims it was an accident. Meanwhile, Ilya found tracks on the road and rushed to the house. There, he saw the dying dog and Chris apologizing. The man wants to kill him immediately, but realizes that Chris has taken the ammunition from the weapon. Then the guy pulls out a gun and forces Ilya to stay still. To his wife, Chris explains that Ilya attacked him first, and it was self-defense. Suddenly, Chris shows his true colors and begins to threaten Tanya and Lika, demanding that they follow his orders. Tanya offers money, but Chris doesn't like Georgian money. He demands that the girl tie up her mother, and Lika is forced to obey. Later, the guy takes Alicia's underwear out of his pocket, and Ilya shouts that he was drunk and didn't realize what he was doing. The man has given up alcohol after that terrible incident, but Chris is not reassured, and he decides to drink alcohol as well. Remembering everything that Alicia went through, Chris decides that he needs Lika's underwear and that she should bring it like a dog. When Ilya asks him not to interfere with his family, Chris gags him with his daughter's underwear and then tells him about what Ilya did to the defenseless girl. He recalls how he tried to take the injured Alicia to the hospital, but she died in his arms. Soon, Chris thinks that it's enough to talk about sad things, because Ilya likes to play games. The boy leaves only one bullet in the gun and explains the rules. Lika will take off her clothes, and Chris will shoot. If the girl is lucky, she will stay alive. When Lika refuses to play, Chris takes the shot. Ilya begs him to leave his daughter alone and play with him, but the boy only copies his crazy behavior. Lika has no choice but to take off her clothes, and then Chris shoots. It looks like Chris regrets what happened and realizes his mistake too late to change anything. Thus, he is left alone with himself and his thoughts, which will haunt him for the rest of his life.